So this first story, a transgender student this is out in Virginia. On Monday, juvenile court judge Loudoun County found the transgender teen guilty of sexually assaulting a female student in Loudoun County High School. This happened back in May. So just for clarification, the transgender teen was a biological male student. And this year, a sweeping rule went into the school system that said that students could use the bathroom to which they identify, not their biological sex. So the juvenile court judge just found the transgender teen guilty. The issue, one of the biggest issues that students and parents found was that the school board had actually covered it up, had not investigated the situation. This transgender teen switched schools and did the same thing again.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So the take here, your thoughts on what happened?
Well, no, I mean, it's a disaster. Mm-hmm. I mean, my thoughts are this is a disaster. And I'm not against transgender people if they're truly transgender, right? If someone was really transgender, would they go into a bathroom and sodomize a female? I mean, I don't really know a lot about it.
Yeah.
It's a problem for me all the way around.
Yeah.
Just think about if this is your daughter,
right.
This is your niece, this is a family member. This is really, really bad stuff. And this whole thing about passing a law, if they really want to do this properly and they're really committed to it, get a third bathroom.
Right.
Okay? I mean, I'm so sorry, but I mean, this person does not belong in there with biologically female little girls.
I could not agree more. And I think the bathroom bill in general that we've seen in a number of states, I mean, North Carolina just had a big story about it, I think last year. In theory, if people were all perfectly good people, there were no bad people, then I think there wouldn't be an issue with anyone using any bathroom. You know what I mean? There would not be creeps. There wouldn't be anyone trying to sexually assault anyone. But unfortunately, people like this exist. And again, if you believe you're a different, you identify as a different gender, you're transgender, that's up to you. But I think, and that's your business, and I have no problem with that either. But I do think that forcing everyone to be okay with the cross bathroom use, I think that is completely unbelievable because of people like this who essentially give a bad name to transgender people all over.
Well, let me give you a data point that is probably one of the most important data points here. The father of the first girl goes in front of the school board to protest, goes crazy. Do you know what the school board does? They arrest him for disorderly conduct. The father got arrested in the school board. Now, if he was going up trying to grab somebody by the neck, that's one thing. It doesn't sound from, he was just screaming and yelling at the school board. Now,
I watched the video and they got in each other's faces, but it's not like again, exactly what you're saying. It's not like he was punching or anything super violent. It was just, it was a heated discussion.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, is that insult to injury in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if that happened to me, I could see my dad doing the exact same thing and worse.
Well, it just, I don't know. You know, this whole Loudoun County school board thing, you know, let's go back now. You got to remember there was a letter from the school board. I don't know if it was Loudoun County.
The National School Board Association.
And it went to the Justice Department. And the Justice Department opened up an inquiry.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, the school board people said, no, we really shouldn't have characterized these parents as terrorists.
Domestic terrorists.
And so now the Justice Department is now in a little bit of hot water, trying to explain their own actions.
Right.
Parents aren't domestic terrorists, man. They love their kids.
Yeah.
And if we had more parents that love their kids, we wouldn't have some of the problems that we have with our youth.
I could not agree more. And you know what? This story actually takes us into our next story because, if, again, like I said, that father, reacting like that, I think is understandable. So this next story, a man killed his daughter's boyfriend. And I'm not condoning killing by any means, but a man killed his daughter's boyfriend after he found out that the boyfriend sold her into a sex trafficking ring.
Yeah, you cover this one because this one is just, it's nutty.
Unbelievable.
For me. Yeah.
Yeah. So NBC reports that basically in Washington State, this man found out that his daughter was dating a 19-year-old boy and sold her into a sex trafficking ring. Well, probably almost a year later, basically last month in Spokane, the boyfriend was found in the trunk of an abandoned car, completely dead. Apparently he was hit with a cinder block, repeatedly stabbed.
Yeah.
The father's charged with first-degree murder. The father had found out that she was trafficked in the Seattle area back in October of 2020. He was apparently able to rescue her. My question is, how did he find out that information? But
well, this is another very sad story, but Sarah, I have to tell you, your father wouldn't kill the guy and put him in the trunk of a car. I think your father, my father, anyone's father, me, I think we would go to the authorities, we would report it, and we would make sure that he suffered the consequences of whatever the law stated. You're not going to be justified by killing a guy, hitting him over the head with a cinder block, and putting him in your trunk.
Yeah, I don't approve of vigilante behavior for sure, but I understand probably what mentally went through his head when he found out.
I agree, but it doesn't justify the actions
of killing
that occurred, and now he's going to have to deal with this for the rest of his life.
Yep.
Versus, if something like this happens in your life, go to the authorities. Report this.
Right.
Make sure that...
And maybe he did. We don't know. There's a lot of the story we don't know. Maybe he did and nothing happened, or it was a slap on the wrist or what have you. Yeah, I'm not sure. They didn't report that in any of the stories.
But as bad as what the boyfriend did, and it's horrific, it doesn't equal the father then killing the boyfriend. That doesn't equal that.
Right.
If he took a gun right in front of the father and shot her in the head, and then his reflex actions were to take out a gun and shoot the guy, that's more understandable than this one.
Yeah.
This one, to me, is a terrible story with a very bad ending, but it's not justifiable.
Yeah, I see that. Our next story, speaking of guns, the Supreme Court heard arguments on New York's gun permit law this week. So NBC reports that the law requiring showing a special need to carry a permit for concealed handgun in public in New York. It's under scrutiny, that law. So basically, in New York, if you wanted to get the permit, you had to show that you had a special need or a special reason for needing the handgun. And the people who are fighting against this law that was ruled in 2008 are saying that you shouldn't need to show a specific need. It should be your right to be able to carry your handgun.
All right, I have a question.
Yeah.
You're the gun expert.
Okay.
So is this being set up by this crazy man de Blasio, or is this from the governor?
No, this is separately. This is from a separate lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah, who's bringing this up.
All right. So what they're basically trying to do now is limit your ability when you have a permit to carry.
Yeah, well, so people who are applying for permits, you have to prove why you're scared and need the gun, essentially.
Okay. And your opinion on that is?
That's absurd.
Okay.
I think that is completely ridiculous. It is your Second Amendment right to have a weapon. I mean, now I understand there's a part of it where the conversation was talking about in public places where there's a lot of people, like obviously Times Square, like certain places like this.
Well, you can't go into a bar with that.
Right. And I understand that there's certain places you shouldn't be able to carry, but in the state of New York, I mean, a lot of New York is rural. You're from upstate New York.
Yeah.
I grew up right around the area. A lot of it is not New York City, and I don't think people realize that. I mean, New York City is 13 miles top to bottom.
Yeah.
Manhattan is 13 miles top to bottom. So it's just, I think it's an absurd rule.
Yeah, and again, we get into these discussions about, guns in America. I have been very clear that I'm a Second Amendment guy to a point. Mm-hmm. A lot of the people that I know and people that I like believe that you should be able to own an automatic weapon if you want to own an automatic
I'm one
weapon.
Of those people.
I'm not.
Who believes that?
I don't believe that. Mm-hmm. I don't think that that's right. I think those are for military-related things, and they're not meant to go duck hunting. They're not meant to protect yourself in the house. There's a million ways to do that with a shotgun, a handgun, a single rifle, whatever. the automatic weapon thing bothers me because a lot of what I've seen in the automatic weapon world is guys killing people fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I know we've talked about this before, but
you never paid attention to the buzzer.
I know. I was going to say, well, and I know we've talked about this before, but I mean, I think that first off, a couple of reasons why I think that having an automatic weapon is within your right, because first off, it's a slippery slope. If you start to deny, technically, even a handgun's a semi-automatic. I mean, it auto-loads. But I also think that when you break it down, the reason why people are supposed to be able to carry is so that the government can't decide to overthrow. And we see what's happened in Australia. I mean, we saw what happened when the shutdown happened, with coronavirus. We saw what happened with the mask mandates, with the vaccine mandates. I mean, we're seeing government put their hand in control over people, in control over small businesses, bodies, lives, everything. And the whole point of owning a gun is obviously, protection, but of course, again, to make sure that when martial law gets put into place, you aren't a victim to that without some way to defend yourself. Obviously, this didn't happen during the shutdown, but if the government came in and decided, okay, we're going to shut everything down and, life's going to go to chaos and collapse, you want to be able to defend yourself.
Yeah. Well, we just see, I see the issue differently. I'm a Second Amendment guy, no question.
Yeah.
Should never touch the Second Amendment, but there are provisions inside the Second Amendment as technology continues to produce these weapons of mass destruction. Does the public really need these weapons? So
yeah, we could go on and on in this.
All right.
Yeah. All right, our next conversation, masks in schools. An Arizona High Court upholds a ruling blocking school mask bans. So basically saying that school mask bans are allowed. They found the Republican-controlled legislature violated the state constitution by including new laws banning the school mask mandate. So my question to you is, do you think a mask is a parental decision, or should it be a school decision?
It's a hard one. I think, Sarah, that now that more and more people are getting vaccinated, I think some of the numbers are starting to come down a little bit. I think masks in certain situations are necessary. Mm-hmm. I've talked to a lot of teachers around the country because I really spent a lot of time on this on the first season because we were right in the middle of this COVID thing. And they were concerned about, their own health and welfare. And these were legitimate concerns. Do masks help the fact that, the spreading of this virus? I think it's proven that they do. The problem that you have and a lot of people have, and I do to a certain extent, is I think anytime something is mandated, it's a problem. Mm-hmm. That's my problem. Mm-hmm. The Democrats are too much on to mandates in general. I think that's accurate as it relates to you, right?
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, absolutely. It shouldn't be a mandate. It should be up to the parent whether or not they want, in my opinion, whether or not they want to mask their child. And in theory, I understand masks. I understand the science behind it. Flu season, if everyone wore masks, it would probably be a little safer for everyone. Just in the common cold, if you're walking around coughing on things at a grocery store, picking up avocados, I always test the avocados. But I think that, again, exactly it's the principle. The same thing is kind of what you're talking about with the mandates. I just don't believe that should be put as a law.
Well, one side to what I would say to counter one thing that you said is that, yes, the parents have to have a say-so. They need to decide. But if you're a school administrator or you're a teacher, you look at it a little bit differently in that this child is coming into your classroom and you could become infected with the coronavirus. So from that standpoint, it's not as crystal clear as just the parents.
I agree, but at the same time, there are so many studies out there that talk about how masks do more harm than good to kids.
And every study that you have on that, I could show you one that says something completely different.
I was going to say, it depends what you Google, right? It depends what words you actually type in, what articles are going to come up. So it's just, it's tough because both claim science is behind their claims, but I think, again, at the end of the day, mandates should not be in place like this.
Well, I'm against mandates.
Yes.